Namaskaram and welcome. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. On behalf of Panchajanya, it is indeed an honor to welcome Dr. Dharini Krishnan and Dr. Madhumita Krishnan, who are going to be speaking to us specifically on the connection between the various festivals, the Utsavas that we celebrate in India, specifically the southern part of India, and the correlation to Ahara, to the food and the other festive dishes that we consume. Panchajanya is an initiative that attempts to weave together multi-layered, multi-sensorial experiences anchored in the living tradition of the Bharatiya Sanskriti and Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, showcasing and curating for the participants a seamless experience and immersion in many aspects of Indian culture, art, heritage, ecology, philosophy, health, cuisine, and more. Let me start with an invocation before I introduce our speakers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. We have with us as our speakers today, as I said, Dr. Dharini Krishnan and Dr. Madhumita Krishnan. Dr. Dharini Krishnan, PhD RD, holds a doctorate in nutrition and dietetics. She is a registered dietitian, and her YouTube channel, Dharini Krishnan's Easy Diet, is one that's very popular. She's also a genetic counselor, former national president, former chairperson of the Registered Dietitian Board of Indian Dietetic Association. She had developed her own software, Digest, and an app, NutriTracks, for use by dietitians. She has been on TV and radio for many decades, giving regular programs on diet. She has been given articles in print media, both English and vernacular. She is a practicing consultant dietitian at Chennai, having her own clinics. She won the Aval Vigadan Best Dietitian Award in 2018, Dietita, Dieta, and HI9 Honorary Award for Unique Contribution to Nutrition and Dietetics in January 2020, the Realistic Award by Pakwan and Rajwada for Professional Dietitian Feb 2020. She continues to contribute articles and chapters in many reputed journals. Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting this invitation and going live for Panchajanya this evening. Dr. Madhumita Krishnan is an Ayurvedic Vaidya with multiple years of experience. She holds an MD in Ayurveda. She is a consultant Ayurveda pediatrician and Kappa certified childbirth educator based out of Bangalore. She works as a consultant with CABHM, Transdisciplinary University, Bangalore, and runs a program on Introduction to Ayurveda Dietetics and Advanced Ayurveda Dietetics. She works as a consultant pediatrician at multiple centers in Bangalore and Hyderabad, handling cases of children with special needs. She holds an excellent track record of improving the quality of life. Dr. Madhumita works also as an Ayurveda educator for the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandira in Chennai. Thank you so much, Dr. Madhu, for joining us this evening. Delighted to have both of you here and looking forward to your insights.
Thank you so much for having us. I think this is a topic which is very close to our hearts and something which all of us really think about. Rather, people who enjoy food for sure think about this thing. Um, when we talk about festivals, Festivals are, I would say, a day that many, many people look forward to. It's a chance to dress up, go meet people, celebrate, of course, the sun's change in the direction, or probably a harvest festival, or a new year, or some form of positive energy which we inculcate in our lives. And the tradition for each of these utsavas or festivals changes from, I would say, home to home. Even if it's the same festival that we're celebrating, I'm sure the kind of things which we do for that festival could be vary. And I definitely look forward to all the festivals that I have grown up with as a child. And we, over the next 45 to 50 minutes, will hope to talk about a very, I would say, um, shortened version of the festivals, because um, is the are the slides okay? Okay. Yeah. So we will be talking only about one aspect of this, which we are all familiar with. Rather, I am familiar with, because these are the utsavas that and the prasadams that I have had. I'm sure in each of your homes, in your states, in your countries, it could be varied, but the primary content would probably be the same. So, having said that, this was another question which commonly came to my mind, that when we think about Ganesh Chaturthi, the first thing that comes to all of our minds is the Korkate or the Modakam, as it is called. And I always used to wonder, why is this only in Ganesh Chaturthi? Why can't I have it even on Pongal? Or why can't I have it during Ramanavami? Right? Or why is it that the neem pachadi, which I'm sure no one really looks forward to other than that specific day. But why is it had only on Tamil New Year's Day? And these kind of questions were answered beautifully when I started studying Ayurveda. And I realized there is so much relevance behind why one creates a specific cuisine, a combination of ingredients which we have on a specific day, which we celebrate as a festival. So let's go through the most common ones. There are many more, but just to keep it simple, we will start with the most common ones which we tend to celebrate, and how the prasadam for that is curated. So, coming to Utsava, Ahara, and of course, when we have excellent food on a wonderful festival, Ananda is a part which is going to happen. So, let's start with the first festival, which starts off or kicks off this whole series, which is the Tamil New Year Day. So, this usually is celebrated on April 14th, and this is considered to be a beginning of sorts for many things. People consider that if you start a new venture or something new on this day, then it will be more prosperous as such. So, this is the start of the Tamil calendar or the solar calendar, which we do follow in Tamil Nadu. And so, to kick off this series, let's start on this date and what exactly we eat on this specific day, right? So, as I mentioned, the most common prasad, or definitely in some form, I've had the opportunity to celebrate a similar festival as Yugadi in Karnataka, and they also have a similar thing in Hyderabad as well as Maharashtra. And it was interesting for me to see that all of them have this principle of adding something bitter in their food. So, this obviously got me thinking, why bitterness on the first day of something beautiful? Why would you have something bitter? Right. So, this pachadi, which we make in southern part of India, in Tamil Nadu particularly, is with neem. And as you can see, the ingredients displayed on the slide, it's primarily neem flower, raw mango, jaggery, cardamom, and green chili. Not really a series of tastes that we feel can go together, but I can tell you that it kind of balances out the bitterness for sure. So, coming to why this could be. if you see in the season of April, when we classify it in Ayurveda, there is a concept called Ritucharya, or a seasonal regimen, which is indicated that as the seasons change, we may not be aware of this, but our body also changes. The amount we feel hungry, or the kind of metabolism we have, the kind of cravings which we have, just our energy levels, it is completely different, right? So this falls in what we call as the Vasanta Ritu, or as we can translate it to the spring season. This is considered to be the season of new life. So after the winter, we have the warmth which is setting in. And I think all of us can see the flowers blooming, the new leaves which are coming. It's just a very joyous, lively time in a person's life during the Vasanta Ritu. But unfortunately, during that time, we also tend to be finding that there is a lot of respiratory issues which start coming up, and we blame it on the pollen which is there, or the change in weather, and so on. But in Ayurveda, this is considered to be a high kapha kala. So when kapha is very, very high, our digestion tends to be on the lower side. And one of the best ways to balance the kapha dosha is through the bitter taste, because the bitter taste is super light on digestion, and especially neem in its form is drying in nature. So it is drying as well as something which is light on digestion, perfect to balance the kapha which is high during this time. So that's why they say, okay, the reasoning why people give us why you better have this bitter thing is to say the rest of your year will be like all the tastes you're having on this day: bitter moments, sweet moments, spicy moments, salty moments. So, this concept of having shad rasas, or six tastes, where you have the bitter of the neem, the sourness of the mango, the sweetness of the jaggery, the slight astringent which comes from the cardamom, the green chili which brings in the spice, and of course, there will be a pinch of salt to balance all of this, which is the salty taste. So, this concept that we have all of these tastes together is definitely something which is not only perfect for the dosha, but also stimulative to the digestion, which is low at that time. So, pretty amazing. So, now Dr. Darni will tell us what the relevance of this is in terms of nutrition.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nritya Ma'am, for this opportunity. The thing is that everybody thinks that jaggery is equal to sugar because it comes from the same cane, but diabetes can take jaggery but not sugar. But as a nutritionist, we feel the calorie is same and the way it raises the sugar is also the same. Jaggery does have more iron, a little calcium, but in diabetes, it actually raises sugar. So if you have high sugars, please don't take it on that day. You can make it with a little bit of your artificial sweetener, or if you have very borderline diabetes, have like half a teaspoon, that's enough, because some people really love this combo, of bitter and sweet, and so they tend to have 2 3 teaspoons. That is not great for a diabetic. But when you look at the calories, it's about 1 teaspoon will give you 20 calories, because this also has a tadka with little bit ghee and mustard in some homes. They do that too. So then that adds to the calorie flavor and everything. So we need to be careful. But normal people, of course, you can have it. It's amazing. Some people don't even want to taste it because of the color of the neem flower, or thinking, oh, it's going to be so bitter. But don't do that. It's actually pretty tasty because the complete combination of everything adds to the taste. So, looking forward to the next festival that Madhu is going to take up.
Okay, so the next one is what we call as Ramanavami, which is considered to be the last day of the Vasanta Navaratri. So Vasanta Navratri again is something which falls under the same bracket of being in the Vasanta Ritu or the spring season. So here again, going back to the concept of why we're going to talk about the food here. The first is the kapha dosha is very, very high and our digestion is not the greatest. So now let's talk about why exactly in Ramanavami they talk about this combination of two extremely light drinks. The first is what is called the neer more, which is a very dilute buttermilk, and in that churned buttermilk, of course, where the excess fat is removed. And in addition, they do add salt, chili, coriander leaves, curry leaves, and so on. So this is also something which has a combination of taste, and it's meant to be, I think, a digestive. I remember whenever in April, particularly, they have the festival in the temple. At that time, due to the soaring temperatures, because in Chennai at least, I remember we were always the hottest season was April and May, and we used to have holidays. So at that time, the minute the temple festival was there, there'll be these small stands which come up all around the road, and they will start handing out this neermore to people who are passing by, because as they are walking they don't want them to get dehydrated, or they don't want them to basically get no form of rehydration, which this can definitely bring about. And it's interesting also, being part of a navaratri, it's a type of changing season. So at that time the immunity tends to get hit, so people do say that you need to fast. And so navaratri is a time that naturally people feasting is a part of it, but this navaratri people don't feast as much, there's more of fasting. And whenever you break a fast, it should not be something which is super heavy, because the digestion may not be able to take it. And in this season, because kapha is high, even if you have a very, very light meal or practically nothing, your body will still be able to take it, because your digestion is not that great. So then they say at least have a lot of fluids to improve your digestion, to maintain the digestion, where first the neer more works, because I think all of us know that more or buttermilk does have a good amount of effect on improving the digestion. And in Ayurveda, we actually call it Amrita. We say it is the best nectar which you can have for improving the digestive system. And then you have Panagam. Panagam is, it's like a perfect balance to the buttermilk, because this is sweet, it's refreshing, it's sour, and primarily you have the combination of jaggery, cardamom, and lemon. So here again, as I was saying, those stands, one of them will of course be the neer more, but slightly more fancy, there will also be lemon juice, which people will give. So the panagam is kind of similar to that, because it is something which not only, it is of course something which is very rehydrating, it increases the kapha, no doubt, but this is also excellent for digestion. I think most of us know that lemon is something which improves that. It really helps us feel a good taste. If you like the sour taste, the lemon with the sweet is something which is a great combination. So here we keep it light, because the kapha cannot handle something which is very, very difficult on digestion. But at the same time, it's also not something which is super heavy and stimulative to the digestive fire. Over to you, Doctor.
Yeah. So I remember once in summer we were actually in Varanasi and it was so hot. And actually they were serving neer more in pots. You know, they had stored it in pots and kept and they gave it. It was so refreshing. Even an ice water will not quench the thirst as much as something which is the right temperature. So this Neermore is an amazing thing, or buttermilk as we call it. And in summer, all of us always talk about hydration. Because if you don't hydrate yourself properly, and specifically when you're staying in places where you sweat a lot, like Chennai, for example. If you don't hydrate yourself, you can get dizzy or, lower blood pressure and so many other problems. So this is amazing, and the salt is not so high. We put very little salt in that, and that will actually add to the sodium which we lose through the sweat. So it's very useful. And adding the coriander leaves and the chili, both which have a little bit of vitamin C, is very good because during summer there are a lot of infections which come, and these antioxidants actually help us prevent and give us immunity. So this is an amazing combo, and it's just 40 calories for a glass of 200 ml because it's quite liquidy and it's really nice. Then comes Panagam. Panagam has jaggery, cardamom, and lime. And lime, of course, has potassium, which is very good because those who have blood pressure, this actually balances out the sodium because the sodium potassium are opposites to each other. So this is amazing, and it's quite light. The jaggery is not very heavy. That is why we've got a huge range of 100 to 150 calories depending on how dilute or how thick it is. So usually it's made very dilute and it's fine, and it's very refreshing. And even if you keep it in a pot or keep it cool in some way, it is even more tastier, and it's very refreshing during summer. So both these drinks are very nice, and they are served, of course, Neermore is served at every corner and every street during that time because it's I think a tradition so that people don't really faint or due to the sun when they're moving around, because I think at those times there was no thing of carrying a water bottle or a mineral water bottle with you. So people served this so that people were hydrated. So I think that was the reason, and it's very interesting how it still continued, and people take it very happily from people who serve it because it's served in a very nice way. Yeah, over to you, Madhu.
Moving on to the next one. Now we skip the whole summer and enter into the Vara Mahalakshmi Viratam, which generally falls end of Grishma, beginning of Varsha Ritu. So here again, it's a kind of a changing season where the rain is starting to set in, but it's like when it's not raining, it's super hot, and when it's raining it's like this completely different temperature. And it's interesting, if you see the name of this festival itself, it has fasting as a part of it. It says Viradam, which is primarily a word which many of us use to explain that we are supposed to be fasting during this time. And at least during the puja, before we get to the enjoyment of the prasadam which we have made, most of us are fasting. So the reasoning behind this, if we see in the Varsha Ritu, what is happening is that all the doshas are kind of getting imbalanced. Now, most of us, the minute the rain starts, if you think about it, we all crave for fried, hot things with something hot like a cup of tea to sip on. Now, the reasoning for this is the Vata dosha is excessively high at this time. Our Pitta dosha is also starting to go up, and along with that our digestion plummets. So it's kind of a situation where our digestion is not great, our doshas are all over the place, and then I'm telling you about cravings of fried things with this one, so like a hot drink. So what is the concept which we need to understand here? So if you see traditionally in most parts of, I would say, India itself, the minute the rainy season starts, they have some form of fasting which they do. They call it different things. It could be Chaturmasyam, it could be Karkataka Masam, it could be something where they will naturally give up certain aspects of their food to say it is not a good time to eat very, very heavy foods because the body cannot take it, and so on. So even if you look at the the prasadam which is suggested for this, the first and the most important one is idli. And I think idli is something which we all know and look forward to even when we are sick, because we know that it's extremely light on digestion. It's a combination of rice, urad dal, which is fermented. Now, fermented products do increase the vata as well as the pitta dosha, no doubt about that. But most of us do not sour the idli batter so much, especially when it is for a puja. So once it's achieved a little bit of fermentation, you make the idli, and then you would definitely have like a lovely coconut chutney or a sambar with that. It's not just going to be the idli. And when you put the coconut chutney with it, or you're putting the sourness of the sambar, that is perfect to balance out the vata which could be generated by even if you have a little sour idli. Then you have the medu vada, which is made with urad dal, right? Urad dal balances the vata beautifully, but it increases the pitta very, very highly, and it is fried. So it's not only satisfying the vata, but it is increasing the pitta. But the point which we need to see here, that it is taken in combination. We're not, most of us have sambar, I mean the vada again with a chutney or a sambar, which is more balancing to the overall component. Then you have appam. So the interesting thing is that when you're looking at vata and pitta dosha, the one common taste that balances both out is sweetness, or the madhura rasa. And the appam which you make is primarily of rice, jaggery, and cardamom. And then traditionally it is fried in ghee. So you can imagine how tasty it will be. So this appam is then eaten, it's supposed to be eaten in smaller quantities, but it's the one single day that you get to have. So even if you indulge a little bit, you're primarily doing it in the afternoon. And at that time, after fasting, you can handle the digestive prowess, can handle it at that time. And of course there will also be a pal payasam, which is primarily rice, milk, sugar, nuts. Sometimes people put some other form of contents in it, which could be vermicelli, it could be, pal payasam is primarily made with rice, but some people also make other types of payasam which could contain the sabudana, or what we call as javarsi. It could contain rava, it could contain all of that. And all of these, no one will use oil when you're making a payasam. It will 100% be ghee. And then there will be sugar in that. Even if you put dry fruits, like it will be raisins, there will be cashews, which are again fried in ghee, lovely saffron, which will be floating around for the color, or there will be cardamom, which is all perfectly balancing to the vata and pitta. So it's very, very interesting how this combination of foods, even though we're like, oh, it seems so unhealthy, you're having like two fried things, etc., as an overall, it is not only suited to the time that you're having it, but it's also balancing out the doshas which are high at that time, after the fasting, which you have done for mostly the first half of the day. Over to you.
Yeah. So coming to Italy, people always are now against carbohydrates. Nothing is wrong with idli. Even if you're a diabetic, you can very well have it. If you want, you can make it with millets. But idli is very safe for the stomach. And if made at home, it will be only a small size and 30 calories. But today it's a fashion to eat out, not on Varalakshmi Day, but I'm just giving other examples. When you eat out, the idli could become three times the calories because the way they make it and what is given with it, and whether they ferment both the rice and dal is a question. In most times, they just make the dal, they add the idli rice, and they could add some other chemical to make it actually come out. So be careful. Idli made at home is the best. Another beautiful thing about idli dosa is rice alone is an incomplete protein. Dal alone is an incomplete protein. But when you put it together, it is a complete protein. The exact amino acids missing in rice is present in dal and vice versa. So whether it's dal rice or pongal or idli or dosa, the combos were made with a science behind it. And that is the nutrition science of making it a whole protein. So today everybody is talking about a vegetarian diet not having protein. I'm very, very sorry about it. If you don't eat dal, you won't get protein. But if you eat dal the right way, like this with rice or with sambar, with idli and things like that, 100% we can get enough protein. And please let's remember that, because I know it's out of context, but it's very important because people are just talking as if vegetarians don't have protein. Coming to medu vada, even a diabetic can have a medu vada because it is got, of course, being a dal, it has carbs and protein, but because we are frying it, actually the glycemic index comes down. That doesn't mean you can eat many and you can eat often, but just that on that day it's fine. If you take one small half piece of appam and have the medu vada, together they will actually help your sugars to control. The appam is again, if made in small, as she said, it's made in ghee, it's a fried item. Even a small piece can be 70 calories, and mainly it's from carbs and fat. So we have to have that knowledge. And coming to pal paisa, this it can be made, as she said, traditionally it's made with rice, but it can be made with other grains. But in a diabetic's case, you can use tenai or foxtail millet, or you can use bajre, which is broken, and make this, or you can use moong dal, in which case it makes it more protein, and then the carbs come down and it is healthier. Or you can make it with the traditional rice, like red rice or black rice, and then it makes it interesting. Of course, you have to cook it right, because a lot of people don't know how to cook the traditional rice. It has to be soaked and then you cook it, and then it cooks very well. And if you put it actually in a cooker for quite some time with the milk you put it, it cooks very well. So that is the exact combination that gives for that payasam. Yes, over to Madhu.
So the next one which we have is Ganesha or the Ganesh Chaturthi. So this again I think is a favorite for many of us, at least definitely for me, because I look forward to it's a strenuous process, but I think it's well worth it at the end of it when you have that lovely yummy modakam in your hand or the korakatai. I remember in our family, we primarily made two types of modakam, and my party actually used to make five types of modakam, and they used to be different components which he used to put in that lovely thin rice dough, and each of them had their own separate flavor. But anyway, coming back to the relevance of the Ganesh Chaturthi and why exactly this particular prasadam works for this. So, if you see the month in which Ganesh Chaturthi falls, it's mostly towards the end of the Varsha Ritu, or what we call as the rainy season. And here again, the Vata is very high, the Pitta dosha is on the higher side, and our digestion is not great, right? So, then why Modakam? And it's very interesting because the coconut which you use is something which balances out the vata and the pitta dosha beautifully. And then you are combining it with the jaggery, which of course can never taste bad. And that also, I remember you will put a little bit of cardamom on it, or you'll put a little ghee as you're cooking it, making it even more perfect. And to kind of balance this whole thing out, you put the rice flour, you cook it, and then you basically make a cup, and then you make that modaka shape, the picture which is shown at the base here, and you steam cook it. So when you're steaming it, it actually makes it much lighter on digestion. There are certain traditions which of course fry it, and I'm sure that tastes fantastic too, but that's a different thing. You have it for one day. and a small amount which you can definitely have. But these modakas you can easily eat 3 to 4, and on that day after finishing the whole puja, everything, when you put that warm lovely korkata in your mouth, it just hits all the satiety points to perfection. So this is also something, as I said, it is something which is balancing the vata and pitta because of the coconut content as well as the rice, because the madhurata or the madhura rasa is perfect for balancing that. And of course, for Lord Ganesha, we give a lot of fruits. Banana, primarily something which balances the Vata and Pitta, and therefore excellent for this season again. Wood apple or kapitta, as they call it, has a kashaya rasa to it. And it is not, not everyone likes this. It's an acquired taste. Definitely for me, it is an acquired taste. Let me put it that way, but that way it is something which is excellent for the digestion, and it is also very very good for balancing the pitta. Guava, I think we have a combination of different fruits. The most special one is of course considered to be banana, but even guava, it is something which increases the kapha dosha. And I think that's why, even though we don't have it like that specifically here, if you ever have guava, most people will put a little bit of salt as well as chili powder on that. And it tastes even better. And I used to wonder what is the significance of this. And that again, the answer is because guava increases the kapha dosha so highly. To balance that out, you need to put the spice. So you put that little bit of chili, salt, etc. It will break that kafakara nature of the guava. So pretty interesting how these things work together. So Ganesh Chaturthi again with all of those fantastic prasadam, and the final most important one, the modaka, which is so nourishing. I would say it makes us all feel so good, is also perfect to balance out the doshas which are high during this time. Over to you, Dr.
Yeah.
Lal.
Yeah, the modaka is absolutely fantastic, and normally we don't make it on other days because it's so interesting to make it on that day. And in olden days, it used to be a huge family. The family used to sit, and it used to be a very nice thing. But yeah, when we're looking at a diabetic diet, sorry, I'm coming back to that because they are always looking what prasad can we have and not raise our sugar. So in most cases, I'm talking about them. In fact, I tried this time with millets, this Ganesh Chaturthi. It came out very well actually. I did with foxtail millet, and instead of jaggery, I added dry fruits to the coconut, where a little bit of raisins, a little bit of date and apricot, and it tasted wonderful. So I think people can try that. And if you don't want that, then you can do the coconut with the sugar free, which a lot of people don't like. But if somebody wants to, it can be done that way. And invariably, a modak, because it is does have rice flour outside and the coconut, it is around 100 calories. So be careful that you don't eat too much. And of course, that's the only day, and you can eat all others also. Normally, we make other types of these things like Madhu had mentioned, 5 different types. Like sesame is one. They make sesame with jaggery inside, which is also one of the type of modaks they make. So it's interesting, and happy to that they enjoy all of this. And with urad dal also they make, but that's the salty variety. That is basically to the sweet and salt. If you have it together, it's interesting. But that is okay for diabetes because of the protein content. Yeah, over to Madhu.
Yeah, so yeah, I think also that balance was because you can't have only sweet modaka. So then we used to have the slightly spicy one, and then the mani korkate, which was also the purnam, was the combination of the urad dal as well as the coconut and the mustard, the chili. It was just a combination of so many flavors, which again, the 6 flavors actually come in without us realizing. It's very interesting. Then we move on to Navratri. Navratri basically falls in what we call as the Sharat Ritu. So this is again slightly a changing period where from the rain is supposed to stop, But I think this year, particularly in Bangalore, the rain has not stopped. We are still continuing to have rain, and I don't know when it's going to stop. But the point is that Navratri is where the length of the day and night starts changing. So that's why they say let's celebrate the Ratri, and people are like dancing. Those are more for the northern part of India. In the southern, it's more setting up the gulus and going to people's houses. And I remember in our childhood we used to have like these packets. The car used to be full of the packets which we used to get, and all of them will contain the sundal. Each house would give us a different type of sundal, so we'll say, oh, this person made the same sundal that we did, etc., and there'll be all of these comparisons which happen. So let's first talk about the relevance of this. In the Sharat Ritu, the pitta dosha is extremely high, extremely high. Our digestion is finally changing to the better. Till now it was all on the lower side. So that's why, I mean, even though they say the immunity falls again in the changing period, so that's why again during Navaratri, during this time, many people fast again, and they tend to have like a lighter meal and so on. But the thing about the difference between the Vasanta Navratri versus the Sharat Navratri is that the digestion during the Vasanta Navratri is low and the Kapha dosha was high. So at that time you fast, it's not going to affect you so much. But in this one, if you fast too much because the Pitta is so high, you actually start feeling very uncomfortable. So that's why they say break that by having some form of sundal. So sundal, there are different sundal for, I mean, those of you who may not be familiar with this term, it's mostly cooked pulses, and you put a tadka. That is, you will be putting a little bit of oil. It could be sesame oil, coconut oil, or ghee, which is a slightly higher level. And then you'll put mustard, you'll put curry leaves, and then of course there'll be a chili to garnish it, and then there'll be a lot of coconut which goes on that. The pulses, there are certain traditions which say, okay, on the eighth day there needs to be black chana, on this particular day it needs to be green gram. But I'm not sure about the relevance in relationship to the days as well as that. But primarily sundal is made every day. And if you see among those pulses, the moong dal, or what we call as the green gram, balances all the tridoshas. So it's something which a person can have very easily even after they have fasted. As a breaking the fast, they can have that moong dal. There's no problem at all. The other ones, most dals, the chana dal, the karamani, which they use, or what they call as the lobia, as well as some people make with peanuts, which is my personal favorite and it's very tasty, or the patani sundal, which they use. All of these are the peas, basically the dried peas. These are all highly vatakarak and can increase the pitta also slightly. But that's why you never just boil it and keep it. People will add that little bit of oil, the little bit of coconut, and all of these spices, etc., which balances it out and makes it suitable for that. And perungayam or asafoetida is 100%. It will go into that tadka because that is something which will balance out the Vatic nature of that. So I think sometimes we may feel, and Dr. Darni will add to this for sure, but the point is we'd be like, oh, let's make it healthy and remove the oil. For sundal, that is not advisable at all, because if you cut out the oil, it's going to increase the vata dosha very highly. So it's important to add that little bit, not excessive. No need to fry it, but little bit amount is important to balance it out. And usually along with that, you also have some sweet. It varies from person to person, but I think there will be either a pal payasam or a kesari, etc., which is all that sweetness is perfect to balance the pitta dosha. Over to you, Dr.
Yeah. So normally on day one they start with the green gram dal as sundal and then they move on to the whole pulses. So this way it's very interesting, and when it has the whole pulses, not only does it have the protein and carbohydrate, there is fiber also, which is very necessary, because when you're going out and going for 2 3 hours or 4 hours outside, when you eat this it will make you full also, not only the protein part but the fiber part also. They will give you very little quantity. It will not be a cup. It will be a katuri only, which is around 150 to 200 grams, depending on the amount of coconut they put and the oil they put. They also add ginger sometimes. They add green chili. Then sometimes they even add lime. So these, I think, help in digestion. And also this is today what has happened is they give a feast when you go into a house for Navratri. This started out, I think, in the West, because in the West they started having Navratri and you have to travel huge distances to go from one place to another. Whereas in India, it used to be one street where in a neighborhood we would go to 4 5 houses and come back. But because of that, today it's become a little too much. I think people should start restricting, because yes, there is traffic, you're going longer distances, all that is fine, but it's not necessary really to have three sweets and four fried items and a full, like a small mini lunch or dinner kind of thing. So I think that should restrict, because this is enough. A sundal itself will actually bring down your hunger because of the protein. And it is enough calories as a snack to carry on till dinner. So I think we should stick to tradition. And they just used to give a little bit of Vethala Pak, as we call, two Vethalas, one Pak, two Manjal, and one plantain, or maybe some other fruit or something like it. It was a very simple affair. It was more of meeting, greeting, singing, enjoying, religion, and that kind of thing. Now, of course, we've taken it to a greater level and giving all kinds of things. I think we should reduce that and come to the old aspect, which Madhu is saying has a lot of relevance, and I think we should do that. Yeah, over to Madhu.
Moving on to the next one, which is around the corner, and I think all of us are looking forward to it, which is Deepavali. So, Deepavali again is a very, very interesting festival because it's actually the celebration of the darkest night of the year. And that's why they say that, you light up the sky with, again, this varies from tradition to tradition, but 100% there will be a lamp which is lit, there will be firecrackers, of course, which are burst, etc. But that concept of bringing light into darkness is taken at different levels. This is a very physical form, seasonal form that I'm talking about. But of course, Deepavali is a whole different understanding of light over darkness, which we'll not get into. But now coming back to the foods again, I think the minute Deepavali is on the horizon, people start freaking out a little bit because they're like, oh my God, my diet is going to go for a six. I'm going to put on weight. I need to go for this party. I need to do this. All these lovely sweets, they're there. What do I do, etc. So Deepavali also comes in the Sharat Ritu, where remember the Pitta dosha is very, very high and the digestion is definitely better than it's actually on the better side now, or to getting towards good. So Deepavali cannot be imagined without the fried snacks. So we traditionally used to have mixture. We used to look forward to the Deepavali mixture, which was a combination of all of these spicy murukku, and even it will have peanuts, etc., etc. And this actually got me thinking, because I'm like, you're having this spicy substance which is fried in the peak of Sharat Ritu when Pitta dosha is high. So how is this possible? How is it possible that our festival was prasadam was wrong? So then I went back into the classics and I was reading about this, and it was just eye opening to me when I saw that traditionally all of our fried substances were fried in ghee. And when you fry it in ghee, it's perfect to balance out the pitta. It's just that now, obviously, ghee is very, very expensive and it's not so easy for people to keep frying so many large kilos of food in that. So that's why probably we shifted to oil, and when you fried it in ghee, it balances out the pitta, and the the sweet part of it is primarily made in ghee. It will contain milk and there's like excessive amounts of sugar. And again, I used to wonder why, because all of these perfectly balance the pitta. So I think that Deepavali season, that Sharat Ritu, and there is also this traditional practice of applying oil on the head. So each tradition has a slightly different perspective. But on that day, 100% early in the morning, you get up and you put oil from like head to toe and you have to have a bath. The rest of the year, you don't do it. That day, you have to. And it's also given a term Ganga Snana Macha, because the concept is that that heat which is naturally inside you can be brought down by doing that simple procedure of oil application and having a bath, right? So this aspect, of course, we're talking about food, I went into other aspects, but the point is that the whole festival is surrounding around this, where we know the pitta is high and we need to balance that out. Over to you.
Yeah, I think one thing we forgot to add here is the Sukka Tipili Marundu, which is had early in the morning, which helps in digestion. It is full of herbs which are related to digestion, which is also used, I think, during lactation, which Madhu can add later. But talking about the fried snacks, when you take a tatta murukku, like that single piece, it's 60 to 80 calories. Whereas when you take a mixture or you take a bundi or you take umpudi, which is in a katuri, a small katuri is 100 calories because a lot of fat is used to make it soft, these fried things, and it's fried also. So it's almost 30% calories. So take it in small amounts, and that's very important. I remember those days when we lived in a joint family. It used to be huge, this big drums of these things used to be made. But by day two, everything was over because so many people will come in and they will eat it. But today, what is happening in nuclear families, that so many things are already coming into the house even before Deepavali. Deepavali sweets are continued till Christmas. That is not needed at all. If you get a lot of it, please share it with other people who don't have it, because it's just too much that's coming in. If it's the dry fruits or if it's the nuts which are coming in, you can keep that and eat. But I think the sweets and fried, please give it away. Let your fridge not be filled with it till Christmas, because it is high in calories. And talking about ghee sweets, each piece can be 60 to 120 calories, depending. Like if you take a kaju katli, because kaju itself has fat, then we add so many other things, sugar and other things to it. So it can be 60 to 120 calories. Mysore pak, I always call it as a ghee pak. It has more equal amount of ghee and sugar as much as it has the Bengal gram flour or kadla. So that is why you have to be careful. Ghee is good, but you can't overdo it. So be careful. And milk sweets also, 120 to 150 calories a piece. Today I had a client who said, "Ma'am, if I start eating minimum quarter kilo, I finish." So this is very dangerous. It is meant only one piece that you take and eat it, not more than that, because you'll have other digestion problems later, or you'll skip a meal, which is not good. Yeah, over to Madhu.
Yes, moving on to the next one. This is what we call as Kartigay Deepam. Here we are entering into the Hemanta Ritu, or what we call as the winter season. This is a food lover's paradise, the season of food as such, because finally your digestion is at its best, and then your doshas are also in balance. So Kartigay Deepam, generally, again, you have very, very yummy things. As you can see, everything is fried. Everything is quite heavy. You have the appam, which is made with rice, jaggery, and cardamom. The adirasam, a personal favorite, which is rice, jaggery. There will be a little bit of fermentation, which is done. And then to make it even better, some people will fill it in with khoa, that is, palgoa. Some people will also put little bit of sesame seeds on top, etc. And then you also have the combination of avil and jaggery. Avil is basically poha of flattened rice, and that along with jaggery is made into these nutritious balls and had. So in Ayurveda, avil is considered, that is the flattened rice, is considered to be extremely heavy on digestion, and that along with jaggery and you're putting other things is perfectly suited only for the winter season. And then adirasam with the koa and the sesame on top, because it's naturally very hot, should be had only during the winter season. And of course, appam. So again, food lovers paradise is when Kartikeya Deepam or the Hemanta Ritu starts. But yes, it's advisable to have it only at that time. Over to you.
Yeah, basically, I think we've spoken about appam already. The difference between appam and adirasam is in appam we mix the rice and jaggery as is, but in adirasam we make a syrup out of the jaggery. It has to come to one string consistency and then we add the rice. So there's a slight difference there, and of course, it makes it tastier. But if you don't have the right consistency, it will take in too much of oil or ghee. Usually, it's fried in ghee also, and then it's if you eat it hot, it's nice. Otherwise, it won't be that good. And coming to this aval is just like rice. A lot of people think that this aval is lower in calories. Not really. It is again 345 calories only. So you cannot eat too much of it. And with jaggery, one small, urunda or ball as we call is 60 to 80 calories. Whereas your adarsam is 120 and your appam small one is 70 calories. Yes, Madhu? Over to you.
Now, moving on to our second last festival, which is actually a month in itself, which is called the Margadi. So, we used to look forward to Margadi for many, many reasons. One, of course, being the Kovil Prasadam, which is like the amazing. When you go to the temple, they will give you hot chakra pongal, ven pongal, kesari bath, puliogare, tai sadam, etc. So Margadi is also the season of the peak winter season, and I mean most of us feel like lying down in bed, covering ourselves, and not getting up. So I think to kind of initiate us and get us out of bed and keep the circadian rhythm going, I think the temples open up earlier and be like, at least go and see for some reason, get out of the house. So when you go there and then you have amazing, like, I remember going to 4 different temples early in that morning, and each one would give us this lovely hot prasadam at that time. And this is, we are capable, and it'll be full of dry fruits. There'll be lovely raisins and cashews which are fried, etc. And they will also, just to help your digestion, give you little bit of ginger as well as jaggery, and that is helping in that process, and that warming process is definitely important. But that heat generation, that feeling of heaviness which you get from that, is perfectly suited to this season, because our digestion is very, very good, and that cold season makes us crave for things which are heavy on digestion. Over to you.
Yeah, the favorite chakra pongal or sweet pongal as we call it, 1 cup is 180 to 200 calories, not only because of the rice and jaggery, also because of the amount of ghee that is put into it. It's yummy, tasty, no doubt about it, but yeah, it has a lot of calories. Of course, the Ven pongal as we call, which does not have the jaggery but has ginger, pepper, and jeera, this one cup is 150 calories. One would think, why it doesn't have jaggery? Why is it so much? Because still the ghee is there. The rice, dal, and ghee and cashew is there. The only missing element is the jaggery. So still it is, and literally, when they put it, it will be glistening in ghee. That is the amount of ghee that is used there, and it's yummy, no doubt about it. Of course, kesari, all of us know it's very, very nice. One small katori is 100 calories and it is rava. Lot of people think rava is very good for diabetes. Please don't get carried away. It is a processed food. It's not healthy for diabetes at all. And when we are talking about puliyogare, it is again lot of oil and it's spicy. We look forward to it specifically in an Iyengar temple. If they serve puliyogare, it is just awesome because it is their star dish and it is 200 calories. It's basically rice with a lot of spices and tamarind. Tair sadam, of course, favorite of lot of people. It's about 200 calories because they add a lot of tair in it also. And there are some people who add cashews to that. So it is dense in calories. All of them are, and I guess you're going to skip your breakfast, so it's fine. You just have a little bit of prasad and head to school or work, so it's okay.
And the final one, which we will be talking about, is Pongal, which is what we call as a celebration of the sun changing directions to Uttarayana from Dakshinayana. And I remember for this, we used to draw this kolam outside and actually draw a sun and do puja to that to say, yes, we are celebrating that the sun is changing its direction. So here, ideally, they make an open pongal in the pane where they're ideally supposed to take freshly harvested rice. They'll put dal, they'll put milk, and they'll just boil it. And that is a very different type of pongal. And it is something which is actually very heavy because freshly harvested rice and grains cannot be digested throughout the year. It is only during this time, because our digestion is still good, it's changing, but our digestion is still good, that we can handle it. And also there will be all the freshly harvested, it's basically a harvest festival. So all the freshly harvested vegetables are made into kooter, and that is also something which is served with this. And I was actually taken aback when I remembered that, when you're drawing a pongal festival, there'll always be the sugarcane or karumba which is given on that. And interestingly, sugarcane is suggested only during this season because it is something which is heavy. It's not that karumba is not available the rest of the year, but on that particular time it is suggested because it is perfect to improve the balance. The doshas are not imbalanced here, but the heaviness of that can only be digested during that time. So it's pretty interesting how even a simple harvest festival ensures that it is suited to that particular season. Over to you.
Yeah, we spoke about Chakra Pongal and Ven Pongal already. Coming to this mixed vegetable kootu, they will use all the fresh vegetables and make it. They will say seven vegetables have to be used, nine vegetables have to be used. There will be green vegetables, there will be root vegetables, there will be sweet potato, which has become a star root nowadays. Everybody is talking about sweet potato. So, all of that will be there, plus pulses also will be there. The fresh pulses which are grown, that will also be added. So a whole cup will be only 80 calories, and it will have protein, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and it will help digest the two pongals that are made. So that is the beauty of this mixed vegetable cooked. And when it's made from fresh vegetables, it's just awesome. I think today we forget that in cities because we all are buying out of AC markets, because we forget to go and see what is seasonal, what is there in the local market. We hardly visit it nowadays. Whereas all vegetables, all fruits are available throughout the year. We forget seasons. Whereas this is made from what is grown in their farm. So it's really wonderful and tasty. And it's really nice that, the Pongal festival is again a lot of celebration, and it's a harvest festival. So the columns and everything is very nice. Yeah. I think we'll conclude this session unless Madhu wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think this is just to show that the relevance that the food which we have for these different festivals has some rhyme and reason. And that's probably why it's important to also integrate these specific foods on those days because it has a meaning. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dharini and Dr. Madhumita. I think that's been absolutely filled with insight. There's been so much of learning. There are a couple of questions. I will read them out, though I'm sure you can see them appear, but I will read them out for the benefit of those who might be watching us on Facebook or later on YouTube. I was wondering why jaggery is more often than not used, more often or always used, and not mishri for the sweets during festivals. Are there any specific reasons due to doshas or effects on digestion?
So the thing is that when we talk about I mean, when we're making a specific, I mean, the nutritional aspect, of course, Dr. Darni could add. But in the Ayurveda perspective, the reason why probably you would use jaggery, even the types of jaggery vary. It could be the new jaggery, which is considered to be extremely heavy on digestion, versus an old jaggery, which is a little more lighter and more balancing to the body. So, jaggery in general is more warming in nature. So I think it is considered to be slightly better for digestion, even though sita, or what we call as the kalkanda or the crystalline sugar, is also suggested. But I think in most of these prasadams, the jaggery makes a difference. The texture, the way in which they come out when you're using jaggery versus sugar is a huge difference. Because I remember once by mistake while I was making chakra pongal, I didn't have sufficient jaggery and I put sugar. The color, the taste was just so off for me. I was like, no, this is not happening. I need that jaggery. So I think the jaggery has that kind of when we talk about it in the dosha sense, when you're using older jaggery, that's more relevant. But definitely when you're making the prasadam, like even for that adirasam, when you're making that single, this one, the thread consistency, that can only come in the jaggery. It won't come in the sugar.
Yeah, I
Both
can't
of you
hear
are
you.
welcome to add as you wish.
Sorry, we
Both
missed
of
that.
you,
We
if
can't.
Dr. Tarini wants to add, you're welcome to.
No, no, not really. There isn't much to say about that. Only that jaggery is not processed in with chemicals, or it's not this thing. That's why I think traditionally they used it. It adds more nutrients, basically minerals, calcium and potassium and things like that. And that's all I have to say. Yeah.
In connection, what is your thought about artificial sweeteners? There seem to be so many opinions about whether this is okay, not okay, and can be very confusing. What do you think about the use of stevia or other such sweeteners?
Yeah, stevia is the safest in the present list because the older ones have been proved to not been good. Even they change the microbiome inside the body, which is not good. So, and once people want that sweetness and they get used to it, they start adding it to coffee, tea, to everything that they eat, which is not good. Whereas if you use it only to make a sweet, it's rarely. So it's all right. The worst is they believe that every sugar free thing that is available is really sugar free, which is the most dangerous part. Like they will say, like I've seen an ice cream shop where they have written sucrose, sugar replaced by sucrose. Both are the same. So people are not even aware. So stevia is safe. Monk fruit is the next one, but others are not good. So these two are fine, not bad, because stevia is made from a leaf only. It's not an issue and it's pretty safe. With that they can use.
Does fasting in different seasons and different pujas, is it linked to gut health and gut microbiota? And also another follow-up question, sugar, jaggery or panakalkand, palm sugar, which of this is better suited for the gut?
Yeah, about fasting and microbiota, definitely when the toxins get out, it gets better. Like when you fast, you should not feast. That's the mistake people are doing in any religion today. Whether it's Navratri, whether it is Lent, or whether it's Ramzan, people are looking at the feasting after the fasting. That should not be the case. In traditional methods, it was a juice or it was a small kanji with which they started, and that's all they had. It was not a full feast after a fast. So that makes a difference too, and it does help the body recoup. Like autophagy is what everybody is talking about today. When you do long fasting, there is a lot of recouping happening inside the body. And talking about palm sugar and all that, Madhu may have a better perspective. But it was very surprising when we went to the US. We saw 17 types of jaggery, which I don't see in India. And it's all from India, from the different states. So it was stunning. I didn't even know that there were so many types of jaggery. We knew only one or two or three max. So over to Madhu. Yeah.
So about the gut microbiome part of it, that Ayurveda does not say much about, but definitely in relationship to the Agni, there's a lot about fasting in relationship to that. And definitely, as we spoke about, like during the Navaratris as well as the seasonal changes, naturally there is one day when people are suggested to do some form of fasting or have lighter food, etc., because that is known to help improve the digestion metabolism in an individual. Coming to the different types of jaggery, based on the source fruit, the inherent properties can change. For example, between palm jaggery as well as the general jaggery which we have from sugarcane, there will be a slight difference because palm is probably more cooling in nature versus the sugarcane. So the effect will be slightly different. But having said that, the ultimate, like the way in which there are certain situations where we would suggest do not have this normal jaggery, have palm jaggery or have some other source of sweetening agent. But in general, a sweetening agent is considered to be something which balances the vata and pitta. But rarely, as I said, that if you have like a very new jaggery that is very hot, inherently hot, so in such a case, when a person has an issue with pitta, we may have to restrict that and utilize some other source. So those variances we do, like cane sugar or the sita, that is the kalkanda, we suggest for people who have a very high pitta because it will help in balancing that. While we'll probably suggest palm for a person, again, who cannot handle the cane jaggery. That kind of differences we can make.
You spoke, Dr. Madhu, about food, things being fried in ghee. What is from a very medical perspective? I'm sure people would be up in arms about the relevance of ghee. We have had many conversations about ghee being the golden food, but how should it be used? How much should be used? And are all oils bad, or is there something that is appropriate and when used in moderation? Could you just both of you share some insight there?
I mean, definitely, I think the medium in which you're frying things makes a huge difference on what it is doing to that. For one, from a very mundane perspective, I would say the flavor definitely changes. If you fry in sesame oil versus groundnut oil to coconut oil, you can tell the difference. If it's a papad or a vada or something, you can definitely tell the difference. So I think traditionally, why they suggested frying in ghee, of course, calorifically, Dr. Darni will add that perspective, but it was more for, again, specific situations. Like when they're talking about a recipe which is made during peak summer, you wanted to balance out the vata or you wanted to balance out the pitta. So in such a case, they said fry in this medium only. Because when you're frying in different mediums, the effect again on the doshas varies. Ideally, anything which is fried will increase the pitta as well as the vata, particularly fried in oil. That's the nature of that oil. So that's why we suggest that it is more cooling. You can use, there are also differences of cooling versus heating oils. Like if you take among the oils itself, coconut oil is more cooling in nature. Sunflower oil is slightly cooling in nature. While sesame oil, mustard oil, these are all very hot in nature. And nowadays people are also have brought in olive oil that is also extremely hot in nature. So these variances we do see, and obviously that will have an effect on what you're frying in them.
Yeah, coming to olive oil, it should never be used for cooking or frying. Though they say that there is a type of olive oil made for Indian cooking. When I was the national president, I wrote to them asking, what are you doing to the oil to make it? They said it's a trade secret. So then you shouldn't be using that because what they are doing, we don't know. Because olive oil is used only in a salad or after making something for drizzling on it. Same also with the walnut oil, which is coming up now. But when we talk about the traditional oils, they're all good, whether it's sesame or mustard or coconut. You can use for tadka, you can use for frying, you can use for dosa, it's fine. But when you come to corn and soybean oil, nowadays used a lot, they are saying it's full of polyunsaturated fatty acids. We don't need so much. Whereas our oils are balanced in all the three fats. And they have monounsaturated, they have a little bit of saturated, and they have polyunsaturated. When coming to ghee, it is because initially they said it's not good and things like that. But now we find ghee basically up to 2 years for children for brain growth, it's very, very important. And then 1 teaspoon out of the 3 teaspoons we give people, ghee can be there. It can be in a fried item or it can be as ghee itself on your rice or roti or whatever. But we don't advise too much of ghee from the nutrition standpoint. We said one of the traditional oil, 1 teaspoon, one of rice bran or groundnut oil, and one would be the ghee. That's how you can use every day. Yeah. Can't hear you, ma'am.
So, when we speak about fasting, how should the transition to eating, not just feasting, because there is a lot of dissonance there, but from fasting to feasting, and then typically post Diwali, people say, "Oh, I had so much. No, I will wanna, I'll just cut everything." Now, both of these seem to be a little problematic. What are your thoughts on these transitions, and how do we moderate them?
Now, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So primarily, if you see, there are rules which they talk about breaking the fast. So ideally, they say if you have fasted, then post that you definitely need to start with the lightest food, because most of us do see that, I fasted today, I'm feeling very hungry, so I'm going to have super heavy food. That's actually something which is affecting your agni or your digestion. So after fasting, your digestion is much stronger, no doubt about it. But you put like it's like, when you have an agni which is just like, a little like there's this reddish glow, but it's not really very strong. And then you take like this big log of wood and you put it on it, it will completely douse it. So then you initially put hay, then you put paper, then you put sawdust, and you want it to stimulate. So the same concept within our body also. So when you fasting, you're kind of stimulating the agni. But then if you put something super heavy, you will douse it completely. So that's why they actually say start off with a little bit of warm water, warm rice kanji. You can have rice and moong dal pongal. So these are all considered to be extremely light. And then once your body is able to handle that, you can go for much heavier foods. And most cases, even though we are feasting, as we saw, even in Deepavali, you have a Deepavali Marinda, which contains all these spices, because spices are a great way to manage the digestion. So they, in any feast, even I think in when we go to the temple for the Margari season, they will give you something for your digestion, because they're like, we know that we're giving you something super heavy for you or this one, but to ensure that your agni is not getting affected because you're eating literally like a pig for the next 15 days, also have this to stimulate and manage your digestive power. So post that, if people do not want to eat because they're like, oh, I've indulged too much, etc., and they suddenly fast, again the digestion is going to get affected. So there should never be a major change in either direction. It needs to be more uh, I would say a gradual let go or a gradual acceptance.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where you start with liquids, then you go to semi solids after a fast, and then you can go to normal food. And if you have eaten too much, the best way is to come back to a little bit of warm water, liquids, and digestive things like jeera pani, or we give pepper in some form to increase. Then we move to semi-solid, and then go to the regular diet.
And the reverse, ma'am, from eating a lot to just absolutely cutting off everything, is that like, what would you say as a dietitian?
I really can't hear you, sorry.
The other, when after a lot of eating, a lot of binging, when we have already put our body through a lot of discomfort in digestion, to then say that I will accumulate and then I will go on a diet, is that even advisable, or how does one manage this?
No, a diet has to be, you can't directly go into a fast. That's what I said. If you've overeaten, you have to get back. Like Vepalakatti is an excellent thing. You take betel leaves with a little bit of, supari, which is very nice. These things you take, which will bring back your digestion to normal. Like they'll say, no, literally my food is choked. The whole gut is choked. I've eaten too much. I'm not able to digest. So in such situation, you start with jeera pani, then you have this betel nut or you have this vepalakatti, which is actually made from nartha yala. It is called vepalakatti, but it's actually a citron leaf that is used in that with omam, ajwain. That is how it is made. So this actually helps digestion. And then you move to regular food. Yeah.
I was also wondering, you were speaking about sweet potato being a big star now. But traditionally, I think we have this practice of using nati kaigari or country vegetables as opposed to what we would call English vegetables. And what do you see as the reason? Because whether it is Tiruvadirai, when you make the kali kutta, there's a sweet and then there's a savory combination, or the curry kutta, the seven vegetables that we put together for pongal. How do these local village vegetables or country vegetables, how do they differ in terms of both nutritive value and how they help us in terms of digestion?
See, one is when they are fresh, all the nutrients are fresh. For example, the apple coming from Washington to us, the vitamin C is gone by the time we eat. And if you remove the skin and eat, it's as good as not eating anything. It is only the calorie part that we're eating. So the same, a fresh vegetable has so many things, the phytonutrients, the flavonoids, the vitamins, the fiber, and when you take it tender and make it, it's literally, not only the smell and taste, it is full of nutrients. So that makes a huge difference because it's from the farm to the plate, literally. So I remember once when we were traveling from, Delhi to Punjab, we stopped at a dhaba where they picked up fresh tur dal and they made a bhaji for us. It was so stunning. I've never had that kind of bhaji ever. Which is same true of all our pongal vegetables. Why these traditional vegetables? They are rich in fiber, and because they are fresh from the ground land to us, it is full of everything, the flavonoids, the phytonutrients, the vitamins, minerals. So they're all packed with it. That brings the health and taste with it.
Dr. Madhu, would you like to add anything there?
Yeah, so agree wise, when we see, that's why I think the types of things which are suggested are very specific. So they say these vegetables, the fresh vegetables, etc., because it's a harvest festival at that time, you can immediately take it and have. Now, in general, even like a fresh tur dal or a fresh moong dal is not suggested, because they are like, that is very, very difficult on digestion. Even if it is a moong dal, if it is just freshly harvested, you should not. There are actually, if you go to Maharashtra and all, they have something called hurda parties, where they have fresh jawar from the farm. People go and they will literally take it off, roast it on the fire and have it. But that is only during that season. It will not be during the rainy season. It will not be during the summer season, because our body cannot handle the heavy nature of that. So ideally, the rice which we have is stored for 2 months. Like, it's supposed to be 60-day-old rice. and that is considered to be easier on digestion. It could be with cereals, it could be grains, etc. When it comes to vegetables, there are only, in Ayurveda, they more talk about the specificity of seasonal vegetables, where they say in the Vasanta Ritu, you need to have more of bitter vegetables. In the summer season, you need to have more of sweet, light vegetables, which are the gourds and so on. So that kind of a variance they give, but they don't say that. I mean, ideally, they say fresh food is the best. You cook it just then and there and have it. It's the best because it's easiest for digestion. It's the best assimilated and so on, versus when you store it and then you utilize it flavorfully. I think we can see the difference between when you go to the farm. Actually, I think with strawberries you can definitely see that. You go to the farm and you eat the strawberry there, versus you go and buy it in the, the local shop and then you eat it. There's a huge difference in the flavor, the texture, the size, the color. So I think all of those differences are definitely there between having accessibility to go to the farm and have it versus buying it from like a supermarket.
All right. I have two more questions. One is the use of refined flour. Is there any reference to the use of refined flour in traditional cooking methods? Because I don't remember my grandmother using that much of refined flour. No matter what the sweets were, if it was gulab jamun, it would be koa. It would never be maida. And therefore, what are your thoughts there? We've moved so far into the use of refined flour, and I think that also has a significant effect in terms of how we are able to process that. So, what are your thoughts there? And how could we go back to traditional methods?
So in there is a reference which talks about something called pishtana. Pishtana, basically, if we translate it, it means that which is completely devoid of the fiber. And they talk about things like rice flour, jawar flour, bajra flour, wheat flour. They talk about all those kinds of flours which are there. So in a form, maida, that word is not there. But as part of the flours, we will consider it as a pishtana. And interestingly, they say whenever you have something which contains a flour-based, diet, you need to have add double the quantity of water to help digest that. So they say if you have it in a dry form or just very little hydration in association with that, the body finds it very difficult to digest. So they say any flour, and I would say in that way, even adding the refined flours to that, whichever it may be, you have to kind of improve the ability of the body to handle it by increasing the quantity of water. And most of the recipes, there are certain recipes also which you get in the classical text which taste very, I mean, they sound very good. You have an explanation which is similar to like puri and paratha and all of that. And in those, they will always say, you need to add a little bit of ajwain, or you need to add, it's not only for adding all these six flavors, but to also improve the digestibility of that substance. It's pretty interesting the combinations which they bring about when they're making a specific dish. Like as I'm saying, even when we're making a sweet, it could be a payasam, we do put a little bit of that sukku podi or the ginger powder. And you may wonder, why would you put sukku podi in that? Or even saffron for that matter, or cardamom, is to improve not only the flavor, but the digestibility of that. Because it's very heavy. Without that, you can't do it. So that's the interesting combinations which we have in traditional food.
It's very, very, very interesting to hear that about how simple things, simple additions make a world of difference. I have one last question. We are now in a world where there is so much of intolerance to food, especially both lactose and gluten. And what is the origin of this? I don't think going back to my grandparents' generation, or one generation before, I don't think this was so prevalent, or was it not spoken of? How were this managed, or what are your thoughts? Is there a difference in the way that food is being processed? And how does one manage this? Because if so much of our sweets and the food that we make, if it has ghee, and maybe forms of wheat. How would that, how could it be consumed in a way that is suitable for those who are in?
See, basically,
Um,
intolerances, it was very interesting to listen to one of the previous NIN directors who shared in one of the platforms that when they wanted to increase the rice from twice a year to thrice a year, they actually changed the way the rice was and it became a shorter plant. And because of this, the glycemic index of rice went up. And this was one of the problems because they wanted faster it growing and they wanted to take three crops instead of two crops in a year. Now, coming to wheat, there's enough research now to say that whatever they have done to wheat, there are a major change in the grain which leads to the allergies which are coming. Now, coming to milk, milk is processed very differently today. Even people and families where people have had milk forever, there are one or two people sometimes after age of 40 or even at the age of 20 who have had milk before but are not able to take it. Either it creates acne and things like that, or it creates diarrhea or bloating and things like that. So something is changing in the milk. We don't know what it is, and it does affect people. So whether it's lactose alone also we don't know. They are just removing milk now for everything that need not be done. Milk and curd and milk products, including ghee, they're removing in everything and they're calling plant-based foods. But this can lead to a lot of other problems because calcium in a vegetarian diet is bioavailable milk. We are very blessed because India is one of the few countries which has milk as its vegetarian diet. Whereas you step out of India, you call yourself a vegetarian, they think only of vegan diets where milk and dairy is not there. But we are very blessed that it is there because that is what helped us, and that is what elders who have taken milk for so much with cows at home, their bones are very healthy. Today, our bones are not so healthy. So, there are changes in the processing, the way things come, the hybrids that come. In fact, there was a very interesting discussion in our meeting where we were talking about the genetic and hybrid and how things are being genetic engineering, yeah, and genetic modification of grains. And how they said, one of the professors from Lady Urban College, she mentioned, see, you did it to the wheat and it has changed and create allergies. If you start doing that to mustard, which we have started in our country, and you're going to start with all the grains, how are we going to handle all these things? But on one side, the genetic engineers or engineering are saying, no, the allergies are not because of this. Whereas there is another story saying definitely it's related to the genetic engineering or the GMOs which are coming. So it's, I don't know what we are heading for.
Dr. Madhu, your thoughts too.
See, the concept in Ayurveda, and this is something which I think very commonly comes up when we're talking about food, because in Ayurveda, we consider milk to be a rasayana. We consider ghee to be a rasayana, that it is something which a person practically should be consuming on a daily basis if you want to be healthy. And then you have this whole perspective which is coming in the present day to say that it comes under himsa to be having milk and ghee because you're hurting the cow, etc. So I think the way in which we are even looking at uh, the environment which existed at that time has obviously varied, because at that time we used to have cows at home, and people used to it used to be like part of the family. You did puja to it, you fed the cow, and then when the cow had was giving you milk, I think just that love, the bond, the connect was something which was very, very different. And therefore probably that milk which we got from there was also like amrita or rasayana as compared to what is available now, because it is I mean, I'm not blaming industrialization. It just made things more available to people. But in the process of doing that, they had to adapt certain norms which are not really putting the cow's perspective as the most important, naturally. And due to that, there is a lot more of imbalance which is probably happening, a lot of inhuman acts which are happening, which could affect probably the psyche of the cow, the psyche, and which affects the milk, obviously, because they're all hormone related. And there are a lot of issues which could be cropping up from there. And of course, the processing methods which we're also using, where previously the milk which we used had different components to it. Now you get 8 types of milk, where one will have 5% fat, one will have 2% fat, one will have no fat, one will have full fat. So obviously you're changing the chemical constitution of this to suit you. So by doing that, you don't know what the negative component of that would be. So I think that's where these problems are starting. And of course, with wheat also, apparently similar to traditional rice varieties, there were so many different types of wheat. But now it is very difficult to get those traditional varieties of wheat because it's not plausible, it's not productive for agricultural reasons. And due to that, they've basically made one kind of variety which is easier for growth and again industrial purposes. And due to that, probably again, what is available may not be suited because it does contain a component which probably people are not digesting very easily. So how in Ayurveda we're trying to address this is, we're trying to make, at least for children etc., when they say we, should we give milk, should we not give milk, we're very confused etc. We do ask them to process the milk, dilute it a little bit, add turmeric, pepper etc., which will probably make it more easy on digestion for the child. But this is still in the initial phases. I don't know whether it will help, whether it will work. But spices are a great way in which you can probably balance out the negative components which could happen in that. But of course, if they are very severely allergic, then the only way is to stop it, I guess, unless and until they overcome that allergy.
All right. I think I had so many questions. There were some coming from the viewers. I'm sure there'll be others who are viewing this later. And if there are questions, I will try to share with you. But I say that this has been absolute gold in terms of how much learning there is in food and food science, and how much we've missed out on, and how much we are ignoring without realizing the value. I happened to speak to Dr. Ram Manohar at an event recently, and he was speaking about not just this, he was speaking about how in the Karkata Masa, which is when you have, I think, Varsha Ritu, and because of the vitiation of, I think, Vata and Pitta, am I right? That there is also a tendency for the mind also to get very agitated and to get into actions that you might later regret. And he was very casually speaking of how that is celebrated as Ramayana Masa in Kerala, but that's also the time we celebrate as Adi here in the southern part. But they all have to do again with this. It's not just the food, but also our the vihara, the lifestyle itself, how we are aligning to that, I think has been so much of insight. And my heartfelt gratitude from Panchajanya, because this is what Panchajanya envisions. And I'm so grateful to both of you for giving us so much of your time. And my sincere request is that you come back and that we are able to run this as a fully fledged learning series that can benefit more people. So thank you so very much for joining us this evening, and a very happy Deepavali to both of you and to all those who are viewing this session. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you. It was great pleasure to join the session.
Indeed.